All right, folks, welcome in. This is the NFC West Roundtable. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Mike. He is Brandon. And unfortunately, we do not have Jesse or Z-Bot. So I'm filling in the little moderator role, which I'm actually very comfortable with. But on this channel, I normally like kicking back and relaxing. But we're here an hour early because we couldn't wait to talk about the NFL draft. What else? I mean, it's really that simple,
no other
right?
reason.
Yeah. So how you guys doing?
So I'm good. No, I'm good. If you want to throw a reason, I appreciate you guys for obviously accommodating. So me and my wife, we're going to be going to a Rise Against concert. So they don't come here very often here in Phoenix, Arizona. So we needed to accommodate personal life. Obviously, it's off season, so but I'm really excited about it. Thank you guys for making the accommodation. But anytime we talk football, man, NFC West, I'm really excited about it.
Likewise.
I'm rolling around great. We're getting to the draft season outside of free agency, and in the heart of all these prospects and dreaming, and it just takes one great draft, Jake.
No, I absolutely agree with you guys on that. I mean, I'm really excited to talk about it. Also, Rise Against the great band, so I didn't want that to go without mention. But just want to get into real quick. We're here because of obviously Roundtable Sports. We're also here because of Underdog Fantasy. So if you are looking to get in on the action, you can use the promo code RTS to receive a $1,000 bonus credit and a free pick. Be sure to do that and let them know we sent you. All right. Draft targets, baby. And we're going to start. We're going to, make this very simple so people can digest it. It's going to be the first round. Then we'll, at the end, get a chance to shout out that sleeper prospect. We all have them. So let's start off with Mike. Give me your team needs. We're going to start off with team needs. Before we even get into any of this, what do the Cardinals need in your opinion?
So this is a good question, man. And it varies amongst like whoever you ask amongst the fan base. Because like usually we're like top 5 in the draft, but we're like 16 around. So like imagine all the different possibilities the Cardinals can go. But if you're really looking at the roster, I mean, we got some holes, man. We got potential right guard, potential right tackle. I know Jonah Williams is coming back as well. Defensive line is probably going to be where I'm really going to focus on. Well, I guess trenches, right? Both sides of the ball, offensively as well as defensively. You got those really big needs there. Some might say wide receiver, and I'm actually kind of one of those as well. Wide receiver can be a need, and specifically that wide receiver number 3, that slot position for the Cardinals. Let's see what else. Middle linebacker. I know you were pretty high on Akeem Davis-Gaither out of Bengals. I don't know. I'm just still a little worrisome. I mean, if he can come out here and prove me wrong, I think the Cardinals can be in good hands because we do got him for 2 years. And like you said, they probably wouldn't pay him that much if they were just going to give him like split shares. So he probably most likely is going to be that middle linebacker for the Cardinals. But I don't know. I'm a little worried about that position as well. I'm cool with Mac Wilson Sr., but for the most part, when you're looking at the Arizona Cardinals as a whole, I don't think you're going to have a lot of Cardinal fans debating the fact that the trenches need to be addressed, primarily that defensive line. Although we got Dalvin Tomlinson as well as Josh Sweat, I think we could still address younger pieces on this line for the longevity for the future for the Cardinals. So to kind of put a nice pretty bow on it, I would say trenches. I think trenches are definitely going to be the big key for the Cardinals, primarily defensively, but I wouldn't hate the offensive side of the ball.
I like that. Brandon, do you have anything to add to the Cardinals on that?
I think a kind of a subtle little point that they might be getting it that jumps up out of nowhere is maybe a slot wide receiver.
Yeah.
A guy like a Luther Burden in this draft that is pure slot in what he does, but he's really good in it. I mean, it's not just, and it's no longer a great sin to be a slot. I grew up in an era, if you were a slot, it was like you were kind of laughed at and get over in the corner. We'll call you on third down.
Right.
Now it's more of you're utilized really often within the offense, and you're really sometimes a centerpiece point of the offense. And he can be that, not necessarily be that. You have Harrison there, but I just love the thought of the mix between those two guys for what he brings with his skill set, intermixed with that route running and precision of Marvin Harrison on the outside.
No, I really like that. I agree with both of you. Trenches, slot receiver. I would also consider adding another cornerback. I think that there's, maybe an option there, like a Will Johnson or somebody along those lines. If Johnny Barron's there, I have a hard time passing on a guy like that. I think he's kind of an all-purpose type of guy. Great range. So, there's some definite options there. But moving on to Brandon Seahawks. What do we got, Brandon? What do we need to know? What are the team needs for this team?
Well, we need an X receiver. We need a Z receiver. Probably need to target a quarterback for the future in this draft. Need a left guard. Probably need a center. Probably need a right guard in addition to that. Going to need a cornerback outside, and we're down a couple of nose tackles. So I'd estimate that that's also got to pop up on the range of things, and maybe as a little bit of an outside need safety with Kobe Bryant coming out of contract after this season.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
We got the most picks in the top 100. So, we've got the most ability to go out and take care of that. But indeed, it does have a lot. Now, you've got the Marquez Valdez, Scantling, Cooper Kupp there as your XC kind of guys you can use there a little bit. But, these guys are there to be short-term options. You have to target something for the future. And I'd estimate all of those positions are kind of on the table of looking for those futures, specifically within that top 100 picks that we have. 2 second-rounders, 2 third-rounders, and whatnot.
Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, once you guys made all the moves that happened on free agency, I was one that said that I think that like your defense is pretty solid. I mean, I'm not gonna say great, but I think that the unknown coming into the 2025 season is definitely that offensive side of the ball. And you mentioned all these needs that you got, especially on the O line. And then I think you're right when it comes down to like the future. You never know. You can add in a player like a wide receiver, first round, second round, third round, right? You can still get one of those sneaky guys on there and add him to your roster because although you do got Cooper Kupp, that's not the long-term answer for you guys. You're going to try to give weapons to Sam Darnold, but at the end of the day, he's not the long-term answer for you guys as well. So I'm actually really fascinated to see exactly what you guys do. I think defensively, you can never go wrong with adding a defensive piece, but I think offensive is probably where you're going to focus on. Now, obviously, best player available, but I'm just curious to figure out how you guys are going to maneuver and figure out what you're going to do because so much unknown when it comes down to the offensive side of the ball for the Seattle Seahawks. But man, you nailed it, man. You got so many needs. It's crazy. You could throw a dart somewhere. You'll just land on a position that you need on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, you're completely right. One other just quick follow-up to your point on that is that they've painted themselves in a corner here because you guys watched last year, you've watched for many years the offensive line be a center point, a focal point for what's not only sunk an offense, but sunk the team by and large over, we're talking almost a 10-year period here. And we've only won a couple of playoff games over this 10-year period. So when you're looking at, it's not been necessarily a rightfully successful team over that time. And so you've come into this offseason with the fans literally with the pitchfork sharpening, lighting the bull torches up, getting ready to go, going, John, you better get a lineman. Better do him for agency this year, you son of a bitch. And then he goes through for agency and he doesn't do anything. And they're going, Josh Jones? Really? Go ask the Cardinals about Josh Jones, and so there's a little bit of this going on where, they're definitely going, all right, John, no, it's fine. No, it's fine. Zzz. And I think they're going to have to now drive to a couple of linemen early in this draft, is my point there, and that you're really now going to be forced to pick, which I hate getting to in drafts when you're driven to pick for need. It's the worst place. It's the place that catastrophes are built upon. But unfortunately, that's where we're kind of heading towards.
Yeah. I think the only thing I can really add is when you have all those needs and what have you, you could make an argument for needs all over the place, right? At some point, Abraham Lucas is going to hit free agency potentially, and you have to fill that. And I think that's the thing that kind of goes, by the wayside is that not a lot of people realize I'm not just drafting for this year. I'm drafting for this year and next year because these are cost effective moves. Essentially, you are getting 4 years, sometimes 5. We're talking about, a first round pick, but as we often see, you don't always get that 5th year option because you don't always want that player back, especially not at that price. So it is a cost effective thing. And if you don't draft well, this is why teams struggle because this isn't the MLB where, you're the Dodgers, you could spend however much money you want, right? If you miss on stuff. It's the NFL. And if you miss, it's not going to be great. So, yeah.
Just to your point on that, look at what we're all trying to kind of chase the Eagles a little bit in this model. And when you look at that Eagles, especially team when it comes to that defensive line, they go out, they draft Nolan at a time when they had Josh Sweat, when they still had Brandon Graham, and they had Hassan Reddick. But they were looking a year out for when we're going to be able to pivot off of Hassan Reddick. When are we going to get to that place of doing it? Similarly with getting a guy like Carter in there when you still had a Fletcher Cox in the building. They get out ahead of their moves a year, and the bad organizations are reacting to in the moment of it. And I think that's a very smart point on your part.
Well, I appreciate that. I think really it's as simple as this. If you have this many needs, I would just, at this point, I'd go best player available because at some point or another, that's going to be a need. And I totally agree with you. I hate drafting for need, man. leave that to the mock drafters before the season. I don't want to see my team do it, but if you want to have a mock draft where it's no trades, by all means, I get that. We'll skip the Rams for now. We'll go into the Rams after on team need. The 49ers. Jesse's not here, but we're still going to be covering the 49ers because we got the Niner faithful in here. I know some of you guys are representing, so we don't want to let you, some of you, so we don't want to let you guys off the hook here. It's interesting with the Niners, man. They chose to basically go the realm of gutting a lot of the fat this year, but not all of it. And as you guys know, I've talked about it. I think some of these guys don't make any sense timeline-wise. But Mike, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the team needs for the 49ers?
I've said this once, but I don't think the 49ers know what the hell they're doing. Like, I don't think they know what the hell they're doing. But honestly, when you're looking at the roster right now, I mean, there's just a lot of unknown, man, with Trent Williams potentially, we've heard Jesse say potential retirement, in draft. And then they ended up, getting rid of Floyd to potentially get Bosa. And then they missed out on that. When I look at them, I feel like trenches is probably going to be where they focus on. Offensive side of the ball or defensive side of the ball. I mean, it's kind of foolish to say that the 49ers will not go defensive lineman. At one point, they were going like defensive lineman, like back-to-back years. And I feel like that's going to be maybe something that they're going to do this year around. I don't know exactly what specific prospects they're looking at, but you can never go wrong with an interior guy or maybe even a edge rusher because this is the best time to get one of those guys, especially in the first round, if the 49ers were to do something like that. So I don't know. If I was them, I would focus mainly on the line, the trenches on both sides. Because if you look at the wide receivers, I mean, I know there's some rumors out there that Brandon Ayuk might get traded. And I know there's a lot of content creators, getting a lot of views for, potential Ayuk might be leaving. So I don't know. He might stay, but, they got a pretty solid
season, Mike. What are they doing? They got to eat, man.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, hey.
What do you mean, Mike? That doesn't happen.
Hey, if I had something, I would milk it too. Unfortunately, the Cardinals don't got anything right now. But I think trenches, man. I think trenches right now is going to be the main thing that they should be focusing on, primarily defensive line for them.
I like that. Brandon, what about you?
Yeah, we go back to the point of value. And I think with the Niners and the Seahawks team, both this offseason, these have been two teams in their own little separate ways that have signaled a little bit of, they're not waving the white flag on 2025 by any measure. I'm not trying to paint it as that, but that we are not also going hyper aggressively in a way that we have in the past organizationally. Specifically when it comes to really pulling from tomorrow. And to Mike's point as to why what they're doing is it doesn't make sense because what you have is not what's being driven by a general manager, but you have a general manager who's being told by the owner, here's what you're going to be doing. And then that's where moves start to not make very much sense as to why they're doing them. But what that also does mean, like my Hawks, is it's a sort of one step back sort of situation. So if you're in that place, I always say identify where you're at properly as a team so that you can make the appropriate moves in drafts and free agency. In this case, run pure to that value structure because there are so many needs. Trent Williams is only going to be a year out. I mean, maybe Dominic Puni, I'm hearing they're going to maybe kick him over to left guard because they're going to have him fill the Banks hole. And now you got right guard opened up. And so everything is kind of a need right now, even inside linebacker. A guy like a Campbell guy for them, could be taken early because not only they lose his running mate to his right, the Will, but he's going into year 8. And so I think that does just push you back around to almost everything but wide receiver. I think every Niner fan out there is probably screaming, not wide receiver. But if it's not that, I think everything else is just about on the board at this point.
Yeah.
I do too. I think they're in best player available territory. If I were the 49ers, I wouldn't mind picking up some insurance this year. Jesse kind of explained it. Yeah. Hey, Trent Williams could retire during the draft. And Armand Membo, who you might have to trade up and get at this point because his stock is flying. Yeah. There are guys. I mean, Josh Simmons, Kelvin Banks Jr., maybe you trade down, you get a Kelvin Banks Jr., but I agree with you in best player available. There are other guys as well that could help. Edge, so forth, right? You mentioned, Dre Greenlaw's out the door. So, does D Winters take that next step? If not, I think you need to have somebody else there. The good news is this is a draft that I think has some really good linebackers you can get on day 2. So I don't know if they would go that route. I could see them, but yeah, I think right now trenches definitely on both sides. Yeah. Cornerback. I said corner, not quarter, guys. I would say
or
this.
Maybe.
Yeah. What's that?
When negotiations break down, you know what I mean? If they're trying to do it for leverage, wouldn't that be an indication the owner coming in like, no, here's what I want you to do. I want you to draft the quarterback early here. That way we can come back and say no on 50.
Right.
Man.
Or the titles as to like, oh, this is why Mac Jones should start in 2025 junior. 2025
season for sign me up for Mac Jones starting, please.
Oh, I'd love to see it.
Oh man. So now we're on to the Rams. I'll start with you, Mike. What do you think the Rams need as the team that, I mean, we've all kind of said on this channel, you know, this is the team to beat this year. What do they need that, you know, from your perspective?
You know, I'm looking at your guys' roster. I mean, you guys are I mean, this is a reason why I say you guys are probably the favorites to win the NFC West right now, just because I feel like you guys got a complete roster. Is obviously bringing back Matthew Stafford now, and that's the way to go. You're going to go on another playoff push, or at least try it as long as they can stay healthy. But I don't know, I'm looking at your roster and it looks pretty good from top to down. I mean, maybe cornerback would be the only thing I can kind of think of here to maybe kind of throw a dart out there. But I mean, for the most part, like I said, I mean, best player available, you feel like you're probably going to be the best team to actually say, oh yeah, you are best player available, whoever it falls to your respected spot. And what, you guys 26 right now? Or
yeah,
26? Yeah. So whoever falls there can definitely be very good. I mean, I don't know if you guys go more defensive line, especially with Verse working out, Fisk doing a very good job, and they're really, really young right now. I don't know. I would say cornerback, but that's from the outside looking in. I know you know your roster a lot better than I, but I would say cornerback.
Brandon, what say you? I
would lean to kind of two different positions. I think it's certainly a nose tackles in order there on the team. You got a lot. You've got in Fisk a guy that you don't want out there on rundowns as little as possible. I think in the future now, I think he can be a very good pass rusher, but I don't think that that's a part of his game that's coming forward. And then in Turner, he is a marvelous player, and he can do the tweener stuff between the two. But a guy that maybe is best suited when he's doing his best work out of the 3-tech position too, when it's all said and done. And so there is, to me, a little bit of a hole there. You saw how the Eagles ran down your throat last year. Get some more beef down there. Can't hurt in that way. In my opinion, I think the cornerback is a smartly designed one. I think as well as getting another receiver potentially in here. Devontae Adams is going to be older. Puka Nacua last year, even at the end of the year, and it's a thing that I wonder about him. I think I was hearing somebody say in my chat yesterday, he was talking about retiring at 30. I don't know if that was true and that came out or not.
Yeah, I heard that.
You know, you saw him last year, even at points where at the end of the year, as he's playing, he's getting up and he is, I'm telling you, he's
wincing.
He's wincing. It's hurting. The leg is hurting when he's coming up. And it ain't just off of like, well, in that play, this thing happened. It was like, every time he's getting up, I'm sensing he's really kind of pulling it. Remembering back to his UW days here before he went to BYU, and they asked guys like Roma Dunzia, you know what, you remember, why didn't he have more blah, 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 when he was here with you guys? Why wasn't he out there? Da, 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 da. Well, because of the fact he's pulling through all these injuries all this time. And so, old receiver, a guy that's got a little maybe being battled. There's a lot more years on that engine than he is as far as his actual age. Maybe smart to reinforce that because you don't want to get in a place. And I know we got Atwell too, but I still think that you don't want to me with Stafford, I always want with a great quarterback to be matching him up with those top end receivers because there's always the draw to kind of give them lesser because as good as they are, well, they can get by with lesser. We saw him last year when down a couple of receivers and he was trying to get by with lesser and how hard that made the job for him to do on top of the protection issues that were on point. So I'd be really driven to try to, you know, especially if you get a guy that drops a Golden, something like Golden probably won't drop, but just something in there in this draft you might find. And there's one guy in particular, by the way, Jake, that would freak me out if you guys get not in the first round. You think who it is?
Is it Jane Higgins?
Not Higgins.
Oh, it's the dude in your backyard, right? That everyone's talking about. Kyle Williams.
Cooper Kupp 2.0. Cooper Kupp 2.0 exists in this draft.
Jack Beck.
Jack Besh. You got to pronounce the same way.
Besh.
That's the guy. They will know exactly how to utilize his skill set. But he doesn't have the lateral change of abilities. But if you look at his tape and look at how he moves and what he does after the catch like Kupp, the contested catch stuff like Kupp,
I like him.
Slide right into that offense. I want him all day. But he's not obviously a first round guy. But he's a guy that scares me as a guy that if you went to your team, they'll know exactly what to use him. And he's an outside guy. So he rocks 71% of the time on the outside versus Kupp, like 20% of the time at college out on the outside. So he's also true Blue Z as well, not just another slot artist.
Oh yeah, not to get too much into it because I mean we'll have time to do this, a little bit later. But watching him at LSU, there were times where I thought he was the best receiver on the field. So
he's So his freshman year, he got 500 yards receiving, and he was beating out Neighbors and Thomas at that time. They were on the roster. He was taking snaps from them. And next 2 years, those guys kind of rise up to what they became. He goes to TCU. He's injured the first year he's at TCU. Gets back there this year, his first real full season playing, being kind of the number one guy there. Goes over 1,000 yards with 9 touchdowns. And that's where it's so that'll knock him a little bit. You got the injury, a little bit lack of protection, right? But go look at his build, his size, his length, about 10 pounds heavier in Cup. That's where you get a little bit less of the lateral agility, but more straight line explosive. That's why he was able to play on the outside more at TCU. And then Cup was able to play on the outside at Eastern Washington.
Oh man, I could totally see the Rams doing that. And I could already see it all over Brandon's face. He knows.
I know he's so mad, dude. Don't let him have him. I don't. No. Don't do it. Not again.
What do you think he's projected at? Like, where do you think? Like, what round do you think he's projected at?
Well, people are really like, he's getting dinged. Everybody's got, like you mentioned, Jaden Higgins, and rightfully. Look, I get it. That's the guy that I hear a lot more as well. But like, I watch Higgins and I see a little bit faster Juwan Johnson, the Niners guy that really has ascended. Is kind of
Juwan Jennings.
Juwan Jennings. Kind of like, sorry, I'm mispronouncing his name, but he's kind of like a little faster to me on tape. Not as much of a yak guy. That's another thing that the best gives you. Really good yak ability. Like he's going to be able to catch it and go. And then with Higgins, I see more of that. He's a number 2 intermediate route runner. He goes and gets open and makes that post route catch 2 or 3 times in the course of the game. But it's also a guy that's almost like kind of close to like a Michael Wilson type with the Cardinals a little bit in that angular build, but doesn't excite you a lot to me on the tape when I watch him a lot.
I'm a lot higher on him than you are. Clearly,
I'm with it.
I see Mike Evans, man. I really do.
Well, that's McMillan, dude. That's McMillan in this draft's Mike Evans. And he confirmed it with his testing time. 4.48, he ran out there. Everybody was like, he's going to run 4.65, run 4.7. No, he went at 4.48, faster than Mike Evans this time. He's the Mike Evans in this draft. It's as pure as the driven snow on this one, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I love his release package, Jaden Higgins. And I think you can use him in different ways. As far as the Rams, and their needs, it's like, what is a need, right? I mean, we can kind of stretch what a need really is. Sometimes it becomes more of a want. Like the Rams have won a Super Bowl with Troy Reeder as one of their starting linebackers. Do they need a linebacker? Maybe not. I'd like one. I think an athletic coverage linebacker to coincide with the fact you have Omar Spates, and then you just added Nate Landman, who is going to be huge in the run game, but is kind of a little bit of a liability in coverage, I think makes a lot of sense. There's also only 4 linebackers currently on the roster, and 2 of which were on the practice squad last year. Right tackle to take over for Rob Havenstein, because I'm thinking long-term. And the Rams have kind of said they're not all in. They're thinking here and now, but they're also keeping an eye on the long-term as well. An explosive home run hitting running back. I asked for it last year. Unfortunately, the Rams didn't hear me, but the Cardinals did. They took Trey Benson. So that was fun. I think they need to add somebody to complement Kyron. I think this needs to become, because Kyron can't take on 300 plus touches a season. It's just not going to work out.
Right.
I think it needs to be a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery type of backfield. I think the Lions know what they're doing with that, and I think we're going to start to see more teams do that, because if you don't have a Saquon Barkley and you don't have a Derrick Henry, that is really what your options are if you don't have a player on that level. We've started to see the Cardinals do that. We saw the Seahawks do that. So I think that's kind of where the NFL is trending. Unless you have a Saquon Barkley, then you can kind of do what you want. Boundary cornerback to kick Kobe Durant inside. I know a lot of Rams fans disagree with me. I know the Rams want to kick Kobe Durant inside. They want another guy on the outside. They were interested in Chidobe Awuzie. He ended up going to the Ravens. They re-signed Akello Witherspoon. They have Darius Williams. I don't think Darius Williams is going to be on this roster in September. Could be wrong, but that's a need. High upside, versatile pass catcher, whether that's a tight end or a wide receiver. Brandon mentioned a few. I mean, I would not be surprised. I really like Ibuka. I think he fits them. Kind of does everything that they look for in a receiver, but there are other options out there. And like I said, everybody's now talking about Kyle Williams since Chris Sims announced him to the world. I mean, I knew other people knew who he was, but it seems like since he put him out there, everyone is like asking me specifically, like, oh, can you do a video now on Kyle Williams? Like, did you know who he was before the Chris Sims thing? I'm sorry, I had to say it. And then developmental quarterback with starter upside. I mean, they've kind of already alluded to this. I kind of joked today because Russell Wilson, see, I brought it up, Mike.
Yeah,
Russell Wilson to the Giants. You got Jameis Winston. And I kind of was half joking, half not, because I don't want to give the Giants like a ton of credit here. But are we kind of seeing like this is the meta where you get two veteran, your top two quarterbacks, and then maybe you go and you draft maybe a high upside guy as your QB3? Are we going to start to see that more with the the emergency quarterback that is available, so you can keep three? It's easier to do so.
I think it's definitely where it's going, especially because teams want to have an ability to develop guys. This opens the door to you getting back into developing quarterbacks again, where it did used to be this way kind of 25, 30 years ago. This is why the Packers were able to work so many of those trades like Mark Brunell and Detmer and Aaron Brooks that you sent to the Saints back in the day as development guys. You took as sort of, third round and on guys in the draft, and then you could flick them back like a commodity. And so beyond using it as a commodity, it would just give people in a way to really be able to develop quarterbacks rather than having a guy like, you're on this roster. If we call upon you, you better be ready to go. And, there's a lot of guys coming out of these drafts like Jalen Milroe types that are really raw and are going to take a long period of time. And you can't have that guy as a number two. You're going to need to let him be a number three for a while. Say nothing to making him spend some time on the bench to figure it all out.
So question for you guys. So you still think that Shedeur is still an option at 3, especially after the Russell Wilson, or you think they go elsewhere?
I no longer do. You just mentioned who I think they're interested in.
I think they trade. The team will trade up though. So that's the thing is, even though you're probably right, Jake. And I do have a question for you on the Rams draft. We double back to that, but somebody's going to trade up into that spot. So it's really the quarterbacks will be 2-3 when it's all said and done. It's just a matter of which team's going to do it, because teams aren't holding teams as hard to moving up now. Like the way this has worked, we've seen less trades in the first round, especially, and that you're not, unless you're really doing the move like we saw a couple of years ago, of like 9-1. It's not as much you're getting back. So then it does allow for that kind of movement. For a team like the Giants, that point's like, what's the point of picking here? We'll just move back to 3 and get this team wants the quarterback, so we'll get a little extra. And Lord knows we need the picks.
I don't even know who would move up, because I mean that's the problem.
Jets.
Is down, but I don't like. Do they like Justin Fields? How much do they like Justin Fields? It is a 2-year deal. Like, it just the vibe the Jets were giving off is that they wanted to win now. So if the Giants did trade out of that, I think the next best option, because Carolina feels good.
Yeah.
The Raiders, I can tell you, they're not interested. I mean, they went out, they got Geno. They were trying to get Stafford. Tom Brady was like, I don't like this class. I want nothing to do with this class, at least in the first round. We'll see how that goes. It's the Saints, man. Mm-hmm. The Saints are the only one. And are you going to drop from 3 to 9 and miss out on Abdul Carter, maybe even Travis Hunter? That's tough.
Yeah.
Look at their quarterback situation though right now. And I think my opinion is that Derek Carr was probably moved before we get to the draft. And that they're sitting with Spencer Rattler by that point, because they kind of quietly have a nice little commodity in him right now as these quarterback chairs are taken off the board, especially if something goes down in that Pittsburgh situation where Rodgers and all of his, he's going to be airing up until the end. But if he sways from them, I would say that's an easy pivot for them to him as an option too, then to bring him in there as another follow-up. And then you're sitting on only Rattler at that point. But I agree. There's definitely not as many at that point, which, Chicago, obviously Carolina's that's for sure. Jacksonville's not going to do it. But there are still some teams, even in the teens there, where if he dips through there, like a Dolphins team, insurance for Tua, it makes a lot of sense at this point.
I feel like the Jets are somehow going to find a way to get Jackson Dart, whether it's the.
I do too. I do. It just feels
weird to me.
Look, the Jets don't do super smart things anyway, Jake, and you got to anticipate the word with these dumbass organizations.
Exactly.
And so, okay, it's going to go this way. I can just see it, and this way they can kind of sell their fans like we're winning in the moment, and we got a quarterback for the future.
Exactly.
And that's how they'll try to spin it in New York, I'm sure.
See, we need that clip. We need to just play that clip. You know how like all those YouTubers, they'll play like a 30-second clip or whatever. We need to play that clip with Mel Kiper's and that's why he's always picking at the bottom of the draft.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like how I feel.
Mel Kiper is.
Oh man, so funny.
That's true. Yeah. So
And the
I
49ers
is going to probably move up there. And even if it's not them, there could be a team like the Steelers jump up there into the, with one of these other teams too and move back. So we could see some of that as well. I get the sense that 3 quarterbacks are going in the top 10 come hell or high water here in this draft.
Weird.
I'm telling you.
It just feels like, especially this year, it feels like quarterbacks, there's so many because you have Rodgers, you just mentioned Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins. And I don't know. I mean, it just feels like this is probably a draft where Shedeur Sanders should go late first. I could deal with that. And I don't get the Jackson Dart first round. I like him. I do.
Me too.
But I don't understand this. And I've heard like Shuck. I don't even buy that. That to me, that's like what's his face not years ago. NC State quarterback. They were trying to say was, his stock is rising. He's going to go in the first round. It's like, no. And he didn't. He didn't end up coming close.
I 100% agree with you on the Dart thing. I don't have him. I have a 3rd round grade on the guy. So I don't want to see him go.
Pretty much where I see him. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's but the weird thing is we've watched Kenny Pickett get taken in 20th overall. We saw a guy in Bo Nix that many people had go in the process, 3rd, 4th round grade, got elevated into the first round when it's all said and done. And so this is kind of the nature of now the beast. It's really more about the scarcity and of the position. If there's been nothing in free agency to pick through really, and there's not a lot of open guys, there's a lot of open positions and teams looking, then it becomes now, hey, supply and demand, and the demand is going to draw it to be picked higher than it should. But that They shouldn't. You're absolutely right. It's not where they should. It's really and that's where we come back to the value thing, man. It's where we come back to why I'm such a complete fundamentalist on this of just like, this is how we will maintain our way. We will not deviate from this, and I get hardlined on it because I've seen it go wrong so often this other way in so many different, be it the quarterback or any other positions.
Oh man, it's so true. So we move on to the first round best fits for your team.
Quick question on your Rams about your situation.
Oh yeah, my bad.
You guys pick at the end of the first round. I think what's jumping out to me is that there's a really good chance right now. We go back to value need, Jake. You got some silent little needs there, okay? Yeah. We talked about them. You elaborate on them. But you're looking at in this draft probably potentially sitting there where anywhere of a Mykel Williams, Jalen Walker, James Pierce, or Mike Green, an edge, is sitting there as your value guy on the top of the board versus Johnson's gone at that point. Barron's gone at that point. So it's more like Benjamin Morrison. Obviously Campbell's gone at that point. So it's more Schweisinger, the UCLA kid. How do you roll if you're in that situation as a general manager for the Rams there on that pick is the value versus need chart there?
So general manager Ellen Bogan would trade down and not think twice.
What if you can't find a trade partner?
That's not happening. I'll find one. Don't give me that. No, if I had to, like, gun to my head.
You don't get to wish for more wishes.
Why not? Yeah, I would probably pick the best pass catcher available on my board personally. And I don't know what that looks like. I mean, is Ibuka there? Is Matthew Golden there? I'm not as high on Burden as other people are, but
Golden and Ted are gone, but Ibuka's likely to still be there.
I'd probably pick Ibuka. I would also, I wouldn't go edge. I mean, I'd go best player available on my board, except I wouldn't pick a quarterback. I would not pick a quarterback at 26. I'm not picking a QB3 in a Super Bowl year at 26.
Yeah.
The optics are terrible. I'm not doing it. I'd get a little weird here though. If I had to stay at 26 and I really fell in love with a prospect, I might reach on a Jaden Higgins. I might reach on a Travion Henderson. If there were 2 running backs that were already taken off the board, I might do something like that. I'm not kidding.
That's just with one of those guys. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to have high first round grades on those edges. In Pearson, Mike Green's case, there may be a little bit of a drop due to some character stuff there with them, but that's where I think you guys are going to be facing that predicament potentially, where there are some good players on your board that you like. But when you talk about more of what's the need of what you need versus more of what the high value is on your board, and my Hawks might face this as well. We have a need of offensive line. We can probably likely go defense with the first pick because of the draw. And going back to last year, Jake, why'd you go defense? Why did we go defense? Well, 14 straight offensive picks at the top of the draft. Kind of helps that along, doesn't it? Kind of makes that a little easier on those teams in the middle back end of the draft. And so I think the same predicaments coming up in this upcoming draft.
Last question, Jake. I'm so sorry. Let's get a little squirrely real quick. Quick question. So obviously you got your QB1, QB2. Is there any quarterbacks in the end, like 4th, 5th round you have your eye on and potentially like you want the Rams to develop, or you're just like, now Stafford, that's all I'm thinking right now. I'm not even going to waste a draft pick on a quarterback later round. Is there any of those guys that out for you?
So I was all about not drafting a quarterback, but I actually fell in love with the idea of drafting Jalen Milroe. And the reason being is because I understand he's very similar in a lot of ways to Anthony Richardson, but I don't feel like I'm falling into that trap, because what I watched with Anthony Richardson as opposed to Jalen Milroe is there are moments on film. I never saw this with Anthony Richardson. I just totally didn't acknowledge it, and it didn't bother me because I bet on the traits. The thing about Milroe is I watch him. He's a work in progress. And like Brandon said, you got to have 2 quarterbacks in front of him because he is not ready to play.
Yeah, 100%.
But if they get this guy going, and I give him to Sean McVay, first off, I want to make this very clear. Sean McVay has changed his philosophy in some capacity every year. He brings in new coaching staff. He brought in the Vic Fangio scheme that kept beating his butt. And now all of a sudden he's going out and getting Brandon Staley and, kind of introducing new things to his building. That's why he's so okay with losing coaches, because he'll add new guys to have new ideology. Well, I believe that if you lose Matthew Stafford to retirement, you should be looking to do something different. Something that, is kind of based on today's age of football. You got, you got these defensive linemen that are running 4.3s now. Okay. You got to have quarterbacks that can, mitigate that, whether that is taking off and running or just having a little bit more mobility than kind of the statue type of quarterback. I think you need that. And I think with Hurts, I see him as, high upside. I think he's Jalen Hurts-esque, but I see him as kind of a Justin Fields comp right now. But I like Milroe because I watched him manipulate linebackers. I watched him, he threw with anticipation. I'm not saying he did this consistently, but I saw moments where he was getting better. And the bottom line is, if I have a chance to get him in the 3rd round, he's probably the only guy I'm getting in the 3rd round that has elite traits. He has elite speed, and he's got an elite arm, in my opinion. I think his arm strength is crazy good. I think it is as good as Cam Ward. That said, the reason why I like this is because he is kind of far away. So he gets a chance to sit behind Stafford, maybe 2 years, sit behind Garoppolo, work with Sean McVay, and he gets a chance to, if he gets his number called earlier, he's thrown to Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua. I like that fit for him. And I feel like it also introduces to the Rams, we now have speed at the quarterback position. When's the last time the Rams have had a guy like that? I couldn't even tell you. Bryce Perkins. And Bryce Perkins did not have the arm that Milroe had. Bryce Perkins was smart. He could take off. He ran, I think, in the 4.5, 4.6s. But Milroe is this is how it was described to me by somebody that is really knowledgeable about the draft. And he told me this, and he's like, look, he's like, Jahmyr Gibbs with the strongest arm in the draft if he figures it out. It's like, seriously, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, but he can throw. So, you get that strong arm, you get the athleticism. I'll bet on Sean McVay to kind of figure it out from there.
What's nice is you can use him as a weapon for the 2 years, at least interim.
True. There you go.
A piecemeal of packages. So,
yeah. Keep in mind, they kept Stetson Bennett on the freaking roster all year. They can justify keeping a quarterback. I never want to hear it again. They kept 3 last year. They can keep Milroe. So, yeah, that's how I would answer that. Thank you, by the way. That teed me up.
Yep.
All right. So, best fits for your team. We'll start off with Mike. For the Cardinals, who are your, not necessarily who you want. We'll get to that. But who you feel, because you know this team, you know it better than just about anybody. Who do you feel, knowing what the Cardinals do, how they operate, are the best fits at, say, pick 16 is where you think?
Okay, so to be not who I want. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say, so I got maybe 2 or 3. So one of them being probably Josh Simmons, tackle. Biggest reason as to why is because Jonah Williams, the guy that we brought in last year, which was supposed to be our big signing, when he came back after injury, he just was just so off and on, man. He just was not very good. And Calvin Beachum, which I think is 38, 39, he actually did a lot better job, and we actually brought him back on a 1-year deal. So I feel like Josh Simmons, just because of the connection between the guy that we just brought in, Justin Fry, which is the guy we just got, I think he's a new O-line coach. Very, very high praise for him. And we love Ohio State guys, man. I know just recently after this whole Jonathan Gannon era has come, Ohio State has been the talk of the town when it comes down to drafting these type of guys. So Josh Simmons, I feel like that could be a guy the Cardinals could potentially get. And he was my very first mock draft 1.0. Josh Simmons was a guy that I had mocked over to the Cardinals. That was before Justin Fry became the O-line coach. So either him, I know the Cardinals used top 30 visits on Will Johnson. Not Will Campbell, Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. So I know I heard your point. So we can very well use a cornerback for the Cardinals. I'm not mad at that. I just feel like we got so much potential. Maybe I'm just falling into the trap, but we have so much potential and promise within the cornerback young core that we have right now with Elijah Jones that we got with the 3rd round pick last year. He was on IR all year. Max Melton, we got in the 2nd round last year. Garrett Williams is just coming to his own, primarily a nickel cornerback, but and then Sterling Thomas V, which we got from waivers. So I don't know. I like the core that we have. That's why I'm kind of steering a little away from Will Johnson. Although I won't be mad at it if we go. Obviously, I'm going to be on board with. But so either him or Kenneth Grant. I would say Kenneth Grant. I feel like the Cardinals can very well use a guy like that. I know we got Dalvin Tomlinson, but that's a two-year guy for the Cardinals. Maybe for more of a longevity type of thing. Now, I want to be clear. This is what I feel like the Cardinals will do. That's not guys I want. I do want them, but there's other guys I prioritize over the guys that I mentioned because the guys I want have character concerns, and I just doesn't seem like a Monty, but we'll talk about that a little later on.
Oh, boy. Pitchforks are coming out. Yep. Brandon, do you have any quick thing to add to that? Maybe a player that you like for the Cardinals?
I think Jod Campbell would be a very devastating type of player for that defense. And I think he's this year's Edgerrin Cooper, who went out last year in the Packers, was a 2nd round pick, built very similar moves, similar athletic, explosive, long, can do it all, blitz the passer, coverage. There's no box they don't check. And it feels like it's been kind of a need for you guys there for a while. I know you've had some steadiness there recently, but I'm talking about some true impact. He's the last real impact inside linebacker there. And this kid, I think, gives you that. I don't have quite a blue chip grade on him. It's very close. And I think that'd be where you guys are sitting to be the one that could have the best effect.
I'm not mad at that.
I like Kenneth Grant, I think, for them. Although I like the Campbell one a lot. I just think, he's got this quickness, very rare for, that position, that size, 339, and I just think that would be, to me, that's a need. I mean, we talked about trenches. I think that's a need. So that's what I would say about that.
Fair.
Yeah.
All right. So Brandon, who are your fits? Not who you like. Well,
well, let's start out. Yeah, let's start out with the guy you just talked about, who I think is a guy that has very much got a lot of heat to the potential of us landing him. And that is Kenneth Grant. And let me unpack this one a little bit if I can. Yep. In that we run the defense right now, that's a defense that comes from the Ravens system, and it's our origins. It's the Ryan system, really back to the origins of it. And there was a guy in the Ravens defense for a while there. They had Sam Adams and Siriguchi in there as their 2 big defensive tackles. They essentially stacked 2 big 1-techs in there is what they were doing. Sam could do 3-tech stuff in a 1-tech body. But that cleared up Ray Lewis to be able to run free, because you need the linebackers to run free in this defense. You need those big dogs to clog it up front for that to go. Those guys retired and moved on. Lewis had a little bit dip of his career, and then Haloti Ngata came there. And Lewis was able to reclaim back into his career at that point and regain that all-pro-like ability. Now, is that because he had got healthier? No, it's because he got the help up front to keep him clear, to allow him to run sideline to sideline and be Ray Lewis. And this guy is Haloti Ngata 2.0. Look at the pro days of Haloti Ngata. Go look at the pro day that just happened with Kenneth Grant. It is almost exactly the same. These guys are aligned right up. And Daniel Jeremiah, who was a scout in that Baltimore Ravens organization when they selected Haloti Ngata, has as well made this comp. So it's not just coming from me. It's coming directly from a guy that targeted this guy in the draft, in that organization. And we need 2. We don't need 1. 2. You had Byron Murphy last year. The reason that he wasn't able to do anything because you took him out of the 3-tech, and God only knows why they decided to really do this. It annoys the hell out of me. And you slammed him into the nose tackle role, and you lost basically almost a rookie year in having him do that. You got him to play average nose tackle play versus being a dynamic, explosive 3-tech if you put him over on that other side of it. So he's the guy that stands out a lot to me. There's some talk of Ted McMillan sliding. People loving Matthew Golden and his explosiveness and his speed and saying, well, I mean, if he slobs there, that's another need, and it's an X receiver. I mean, I think that they would all day long jump right on that with 2 feet if he happens to be there. But those would be the main 2 guys. I don't think offensive line, for as much of it's a need, fits there as much as it fits more to the second, third round, where you have 2 second rounders, 2 third rounders. And that's where guys from the Ratledges to the Wyatt Milliams to the Zables, they're all into that kind of collection rather than being pushed up into the first round.
I'm just going to say real quick, Kenneth Grant confirmed to the Cardinals. Then shit, you want him? We're getting him.
He's fun to like. I loved his tape the second I turned it on, and before I heard all this stuff with Daniel Jeremiah, and I was like, dude, these guys at that size don't move like that. It doesn't. You see these big guys when they're up at that 334 to 340 range. It's very, boat in the harbor when you want him to move kind of stuff. And with him, it's more, he's laterally explosive. He can give you some pass rush with that run stuffing ability. And he's those guys that are so big that you just can't even, when you get the double teams, the guys try to scrape up and get to the linebacker, and they got such a big behind, and they're just so large, they can't get around them, and the linebackers are able to slip into the gap, go make the tackle. And it's like, not about him being explosive or stronger. Sometimes just the sheer size of the man that allows it to happen. And he's got that too.
Yeah, I think I like Ted McMillan. I mean, I don't want him to go there, but I think I like him on the Seahawks. Gives them some size, some length. Like you mentioned, that Mike Evans type, that Drake London type. And I think, diversifying that receiver room would go a long way. Gives a bigger target, bigger catch radius to a Sam Darnold, who is generally accurate, not pinpoint accurate. I think I like that. If he is not there, I wouldn't be surprised if they went after Colston Loveland, to be honest with you. I think it is a little early, but I think that's a real fit there. I think we're going to start to see also more teams like want to have 2 tight ends, like not just 2 tight ends on the roster, but like 2 really good tight ends. And I think having him with Noah Fant, that would be a good compliment. So I could see either of those guys.
I could too. I think Warren and Loveland, either of the 2 are available, are definitely in play at that pick. Loveland's got connections back to Michigan. You got Mike McDonald with connections back to Michigan, so there could be some insider kind of stuff there too as well. And I got to say with McMillan, I think he's getting shaded right now as much for the quarterback play that he had at Arizona State. When we look at Mike Evans and him coming out, he had Manziel back there dancing like a ballerina and then throwing it up just for grabs. This guy had Noah Fafita, who's going to maybe be at best a 7th round pick, if not an undrafted rookie free agent in this draft. And so always consider and look at these receivers when you scout them on the quarterback play to a degree too. And if it's holding them back in any way, and if it is, to kind of take that into account as much as you can, as well as being on the other end of it, if you've got a star level quarterback throwing you dimes all over the place too.
Yeah, I agree with that. 49ers, and we'll get into the Rams, but 49ers, let's start with you, Mike. Is there a player or 2 that really stands out, would be a really good fit for the 49ers at pick 11?
I'm going to double down on the trenches, man. I think James Pierce Jr. Can be a fit there. I know the character issues that goes around there, but I don't know. I see him and I see an explosive player over there, and I do not want him to go to the 49ers, but I could definitely very well see him. Walter Nolan, another guy, potentially can go, maybe an inside guy. I was going to say Mike Green, but no, I'm going to switch that over to maybe, because like I said, they do need to get or figure out the whole Trent Williams situation. I guess it just really depends on what happens there. Like, what best tackle do they value at? Who falls? Is it going to be is it Kevin Banks Jr.? So potentially him, or Kelvin. I don't know. What is it? Is it Kelvin or Kevin?
Yeah.
Kelvin, yeah. Right? Okay. Yeah, so maybe something like that. That's what I can see, but maybe I'm leaning towards more like James Pierce Jr., to be honest with you.
I like that. Brandon, what say you?
Yeah, this is why my team does not have the offensive lineman available there for the value that's there. For instance, I think Josh Simmons, there's no way your Cardinals are going to be able to get him because the guy looks like Trent Williams on tape. He wears 71. He's modeled his game after Trent Williams. You have in the Niners a team with Trent Williams heading out the door. That's one just like, I think there's a real easy fit there. Jake mentioned Armand Mabo earlier. I think that's another one to me that just jumps out all day long, where he's 20 years old. The upside's there. Probably at the end of the day, for my money on this, the best offensive lineman in this draft, and would probably be this scariest player to go to the Niners for me of any of the picks they could go, because I think the Niners' big thing on top of the quarterback predicament they got himself in. But the big thing that they've done is the same mistake my Hawks have made, which is ignoring that offensive line in a major way, in a proper way, in which they should have, instead of getting more caught up with the skill position players and putting all the resources there. And I think that's been a mistake. And if they correct that error, I think that makes them a lot more dangerous with Shanahan. You give him a great offensive line, and that changes their trajectory in a major way, I think. But I think line stands out to me as the major one here for me. Grant, not to bring him up again, but that's another one for them where they moved on from Hargrave. Malik Collins is gone. They're kind of sitting there, a little bit, light on it. And somebody's going to have to, I know that he gives you a snap once every 50 snaps. That's looks like Jalen Carter, but somebody's going to have to explain to me the Walter Nolan love, especially in this draft with so many other players that have such sparkling tape, why this guy's getting so much freaking love at times. Yeah. I'm just like, if Niners grab him at 12, I'm going to be, or 11, whatever they're at, I'm going to be dancing. Dancing. Please.
And you'll be live, so people.
I'll be live. I danced all over them on the parasol pick last year. I was like, I did Jesse so wrong too, because then I brought Jesse on a week later, and then I played his draft reaction of Byron Murphy, where he's over there like, God, what the son of God? And then I faded it out. I'm like, let me just see what you think on it. And then I faded it out to his reaction on Parasol, and he's over there just slowly melting. I did the slow pan thing into his face, so he's slowly melting down. Meanwhile, all of his cohorts like, no, Parasol's good. Cabo boys, it's the Cabo boys. It's the Parasol's great. And he's just like, it was great. And then I come out as my crowning achievement, really, on YouTube, I think. And yeah, Jesse was a good sport about it, though.
Love it.
You guys ever see The Walking Dead?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Dale, the face he makes.
Who?
Dale. The face he makes at the beginning of the show. I just started watching it, but it's just as soon as you did the eye pop, I was like, oh, just Dale.
It was so perfect watching his reaction to it, because I was like, I know, man. I know. What are they doing?
Oh, man. So I would say, I hate this. Jahdae Barrett is actually the best fit for them, I think. They added Trey Brown. I don't really know why. They need a corner. I've talked to Jesse enough. He'll tell me straight up, we need a corner. I think Jahdae Barrett just gives you so much versatility. The way, somebody like Robert Saleh could use him would just be a nightmare if they went out and got him. But to your point, guys, in the trenches, Josh Simmons, Kelvin Banks Jr., is it Membu? How do you say it? That's Membu.
You got it.
Membu, right?
Okay. Yeah. You're going to have to trade up for him. I think he's going in the top 8. So it might not be a huge hike, but you're going to have to trade up for him. And it's not a super deep tackle class. So if you're going to replace Trent Williams after losing Jalen Moore to the Chiefs, who beat you in the Super Bowl twice, I don't know if you can swing and a miss on this. I think you need to hit on this pick. And it's a first-round pick, so obviously. I think the best fit for them is Membu. I would try to get him, if you have to move up, you find out there's some intel, you have to move up ahead of the Jets. Be like, hey, Vegas, we need this pick. It's that simple, because I think he is going to be really good, and they need that left tackle, because I think Trent Williams is going to retire. And even if he doesn't, this isn't a team that's trying to win now. They might be trying to compete, but they're also trying to take care of themselves cap-wise. So that's what I would say there.
I think it's going to be hard, too, with Barron. I think he's a guy that's a real exciting player, and that's a little bit of a hard player in this, because he's played slot for most of his career, but this last year played outside, and he played kind of his best he's graded his best playing on the outside versus the slot. And so there's a little draw to say, well, he can play on the outside and play a lot of outside at the next level. He's got 29-inch arms. That's not going to work on the outside of 5'11", and not even to kind of a smattering degree. Frankly, that's there's no starting corners in this league with less than 30-inch starting arms in 16 NFL teams. And I only say this because DeMondre Lenore is on the 49ers, and he plays about 80 to 85% of his snaps out of the slot. So that's the only thing where Jahdae Barrett then is going to just redundancy. It's that you just don't, there wouldn't be any, way to roll that. But that's where I think a lot of people are thinking, and I might be wrong in this, where he can play on the outside and he can be that true unicorn to do it. But that's so small. That's beyond T-Rex arms at that point,
That's interesting, Brandon. You bring that up. Do you think he could fall because of that? Because I can tell you right now, Rams fans are obsessed with him.
No, because there's the way that I've gotten on hot to trot on this new theory of things, and that is that there's these prior players in drafts and recent drafts that then draw other players up into other drafts. Then when the model type is the same, I'll give you my match for match. Brian Branch. Okay, Brian Branch goes in the second round a couple of years ago. But now he's looked at as an archetype guy of, man, we want that slot guy that can play some safety stuff. Man, if we could get that kind of guy to do that, that'd be nice. Who can tackle and all that. Ooh, here, Devin Witherspoon was taken with the 5th overall pick. He's played almost exclusively out of the slot. This guy's very much a match to Devin Witherspoon. So these kind of archetypes, this day and age with the slot receivers now gaining more acclaim than ever, and that we might see 2 slot wide receivers taken in the first round, and Luther Burden and Mecca Buka. Those guys are slots. They're not going to play on the outside. That's where they're going to sit. And so this is just the way the new dawn of the NFL has gone with playing 70%, 80% of your snaps out of the 3 wide receiver looks, so that these guys now become more important. It's not a slide on him to only play the slot. It's just that to me, it does affect you differently in how you look at him, right? Because you mentioned about versatility, and this is something Jesse will back me up with Saleh. Not a real versatility kind of guy. He's going to come cut for that Coach Carroll cloth of things that we're going to line it up, and what you see is what you're going to get. And we're not spinning a lot of the coverages on the back end post snap. So that's where, again, we come back to, you're not going to really then maximize that versatility like we would with our defense, where you can start out as a slot and you might end up as a cover 2 safety post snap.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's true. I know Brandon Eccles had some good success with Saleh. So, I mean, but they don't really need a slot corner. So to your point, it kind of like if they draft him on the outside, that's an interesting one. So yeah, then I would probably say without a doubt, Membu, like that's or
at the very least line. I think they're driven heavily to line. Yeah. And you mentioned the good point about the fact that you have to kind of get this right. You're also in that place where you sort of have to, you guys have, the way you scaled this, the way you've spent your money in free agency, letting Banks go, albeit that was an insane deal that the Packers handed out to him. I wouldn't have given him that money, but it's still a loss. It's a hole. And now you've got to address these and address them majorly.
Yeah, that was wild. Not as wild as Dan Moore got really paid by the Titans.
I don't know. I mean, Banks was 4 years, 77. That's almost at the Robert Hunt deal of last year. And at least the Dolphins fans felt somewhat like, oh, we're losing out on Hunt. I mean, that's expensive. But Niners couldn't push Banks out the door fast enough in the way that they talked about him. And that's where you go, oof. And the Packers paid for that. So you a Packer organization that tends to be pretty frugal.
I that was my first thought. I was like, wait, come again? They paid him that? All right. Well, we move on to the Rams' best fits. I feel like, and maybe I disagree with this because I don't like that he doesn't really break arm tackles, doesn't make guys miss. This has always been an issue of mine with Rams tight ends. I think Colston Loveland is going to be at the top of their board. I think that's going to be a guy that they really, really like. And again, we're just talking about first round talents. Right. So I think Colston Loveland is going to be there. I think Elik Ayomanor, is that how you say his name? Ayomanor from Stanford.
Ayomanor, yeah, I can't say it either. So
he is.
Check with me on that.
He is a really smart, conscientious football player. I would not be surprised if he was at the top of their list and they reached on him. Reached, air quotes needed, because I think the thing that's funny, and you all know where I'm going with this, is that now that we have mock draft simulators, people are like, wow, he got reached on. It's like, no. This is the NFL board. This is what it always was. These simulators and all this, like, these are man-made. They're trying to get this thing to be somewhat accurate, but it's not always accurate. And we see that a lot. That doesn't mean there aren't reaches. Tim Tebow going in the first round was a reach, for instance. But still, if he goes at 26, I'm going to have to chalk it up to the fact probably the NFL really liked him. And I think that's another guy. And then I don't know if necessarily they'll look at him at 26, but I look at Demetrius Knight Jr. as a perfect fit for the Rams. He's very similar to Ernest Jones, who they didn't want to get rid of. They felt like they had to get rid of for whatever reason. There were some things there. They felt like they weren't going to be able to pay him, so they moved on. And they love Omar Speights. But I would not be surprised if they added a linebacker like Demetrius Knight Jr. I would be surprised if it was at 26. So I think those three, I would say, and maybe just another fit I would throw out there. I don't know if he'll be there, but I think Kelvin Banks Jr., I don't know if he could play right tackle. That's the issue. And I think over the course of time, I've gotten used to this because I watched Jedrick Wills at right tackle, and he did not look like himself at left tackle. So I've heard from tackles that I've spoken with, it's like going to the bathroom as a guy and holding up with the other hand. It's like you're not used to. It's like that's literally how uncomfortable it feels to play right tackle when you're when you're a left tackle, and a left tackle when you're a right tackle. So Brandon, I don't know. I saw kind of like a I don't know, but with Kelvin Banks Jr., he's never played right tackle before. The Rams just signed Alec Jackson to a long-term deal there at left tackle. He's not moving. Is that a fair concern of mine? Like or am I maybe
think you're
just
in a good position? Well, no, it's a good concern. I think the good part about where you guys are at, we talk about that back, kind of bringing back to around some of the original stuff we talked about here, getting far out ahead of stuff, and even a year or two ahead of stuff rather than dealing with it in the moment. And what you have with him, to what you're kind of getting to, is left tackle, left guard, right tackle. Can he give us some positional versatility between those three positions in the interim? Now develop him long-term for a position, but in the interim, and your Rams have moved guys around on the line in the past, so this does fit to form a little bit, and guys having or wanting to see that versatility from them. So you can kind of let him settle into whatever long-term, but now you also get some reinforcement here where if you lose a lineman to injury or two as you go into the season, which is a go-for-it year, you've got the guy that you can put right up into place and just kick in and go instead of it falls off a cliff kind of situation, especially with you guys moving Jonah Jackson, not having maybe the same kind of depth to call upon this year. And so I think it makes a lot of sense with him or any of a couple of other linemen in kind of this territory of the draft for you guys to go that direction. I think that definitely adds up as far as you want to make sure you're keeping Stafford safe coming into this year, clean coming in this year. There was too much pressure last year. What can we correct from last year? What are some things that we need to, and that's not all your fault. You guys tried. So it's not like, well, it was the error in your guys' process that brought you there, but it's also one of, yeah, but it was an issue. So it's also one we want to make sure we stay mindful of in this. And look, these linemen in this draft, it's a good lineman draft, but after you get through about 2.5 rounds, see ya. That's it's off a cliff as far as like talking guys that can really play in this league and go. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but the others at the top, these guys you feel good about. Banks on down in that second, third round range. And Knight's a good player, by the way. He's my number 2 inside linebacker. Like him a lot. I have a second round grade, but he's a real fun player. And you mentioned a good point. One last thing on this about the receivers being that there's not as many good receivers as well in this draft. We know that this is a little bit weaker for that. So when there are the good ones up in this draft and you're a Rams team picking at 26, whatever is 25, 26, you pass on that receiver you like now, be it either go through 3 guys we talked about, Higgins or Besh or Ionamore. You go, yeah, but all are gone by the time we get back into the second round. So we can play this value game, but do I want to go 15 picks higher than where he's going to go to make sure we land him? Because we don't want to end up empty there. And that's where I think that's where you can break the principles. This is why we don't want to always, you're willing to, there's always exceptions to the rules with this.
That's why I'm actually pretty shocked with Jacob. I thought you were going to throw a wide receiver in there as well with your list. Alik
is, but I could see, and I meant to
say
he's
in a predicament because he knows he's in a predicament where he wants to probably get an outside wide receiver, but he's got to grab a second round guy to do that.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like Higgins, Alik. I could see Trey Harris if he fell. I know he has some injury concerns. So I mean,
you're right. You're on the button.
That feels like somebody, but I mean, I could also see Matthew Golden. And one thing I will say, I mean, now I don't know if you guys saw this. The clip is going around. Les Snead with Arch Manning. Les Snead is so connected with Texas. They are going to draft a Longhorn. I'm not an idiot. The question is it going to be Golden? Is it going to be Blue? Is it going to be, Banks? Is it going to be, I wouldn't want Bond just because I feel like that's too much of one thing. I'm also not like super high on him, but is it going to be like one of those guys essentially? But Mike, what are your thoughts on if you have anything that you want to add, best fits for the Rams? What would you say?
Yeah, I would actually think wide receiver, to be honest with you. I think Matthew Golden would be kind of cool for you guys. I mean, not cool for us as the NFC West, but I mean, you do have a very crowded wide receiving core right now that looks pretty promising. But as to Brandon's point, you can only get so far with Adams. How long could he go? I mean, although we all said that he's he's aged like fine wine, but it'd be really cool to get a potential outside guy like Matthew Golden. I feel like I would lean that way if it was the 26th pick, but I could definitely see where you're coming from with potentially trading back and accumulating more draft picks, because that front office has a really good job, and obviously going after the guys they want, and they've been working, especially in those middle rounds for the Rams. But I don't know. I think right now the 26 is so tricky because your whole team in general is pretty darn solid. But Matthew Golden would be fun. It'd be a fun pick for you.
Not fun for you, but I get what you're saying.
For you,
Brando, anyone that stands out?
I think that there's the linemen we've talked about are probably right around the territory in this. Banks would probably be dipping into kind of that range. An Arante Arce is another guy to consider here a little bit as a back end first rounder. He's a guy that doesn't get talked about as much with Mabo, but they both have this similar type to them, which is that they're really young, like 20, 21-year-old guys. Got all the markers you look for on the size, the length, size. They tested well. They give you the 320, 330 pound weight to them, as well as being good movers. So now we come back to true versatility and where you can move them along that line if you wanted to have a little bit of that, in there. And Mabo's really getting that rise. I feel like Arce is not quite to his level. The tape is maybe a little bit rougher, but the flashes are there, and he's so young. It explains why you're seeing his flashes rather than consistent. And that's, to me, those young guys, when you grab them at 2021, to me, those are the ones you want to jump on with 2 feet if you can, especially if you're in the position you guys are to have that time to develop them, because then you're really going for the high side, which is what we want to do in the first round.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I want more wishes, Brandon.
You can't have no more wishes. Genie says no. Man. You get 3.
All right. So we move into our favorite prospects in the first round for your team to grab. Mike, who are your favorites for the Arizona Cardinals?
I'll give you 3, and I want to be clear. I'm not saying that the guys that I mentioned before, like the team fits, I don't want. I would be actually cool with anything. I mean, I think the Cardinals can go any which way, and I think I'll be happy. Well, not any which way, but specific guys. But what I would love the Cardinals to do, I'll give you 3. James Pierce Jr. Definitely is a guy, and I know the character concerns comes with that report that we ended up seeing probably about 3-4 weeks ago. Doesn't seem like a Monty guy because of the character issues, but man, I want the Cardinals to prioritize edge in the draft. I know we did it with B.J. Ojulari, and I kind of feel like we got bit in the butt because every single time, we go into the regular season, there's some sort of injury, and that's not his fault, obviously. And right now where the Cardinals are standing, they got Josh Sweat, and they got a lot of rotational pieces there. So it would be kind of hard to say, oh, well, James Pierce Jr. is going to beat them all out. But, I want them to get that dog, right? That dog opposite side of Josh Sweat, and I don't want it to be all on him. So James Pierce Jr. is a guy that I really do like. Kenneth Grant is another one out there as well. I feel like that would be really good to add some more beef in the Arizona Cardinals defensive line, just because we know, man, like the defensive line has been the Achilles heel of the Arizona Cardinals in the 2024 season. Like we just could not get pressure on the opposing quarterback, like consistently. Like we flashed here and there, but like that's always is we lived in flashes, and it wasn't going to be good enough to win consistent games. So Kenneth Grant's definitely up there as well. And I'm going to mention another one up here, and I want to be very clear. I'm not going to come out here and say the Cardinals have any interest in them, but it's just a fun pick for the Cardinals to go after. Man, I do love the idea of potentially bringing in Emeka Egbuka too, because I don't know, like maybe the Cardinals can trade back and then accumulate in a draft and then get Emeka Egbuka. I would love the idea of bringing in another Ohio State guy, but not just that, but a guy that can spread the field. And I feel like we need that. We need that third wide receiver for the Cardinals. Now, I know you can go out there and say, well, we're a run heavy offense, Mike. But at the end of the day, I feel like if you got a weapon like him, he's going to be able to spread it out for.
He'd be a great fit, though.
Yeah.
To your point, you're a run heavy offense. And when I watch Egbuka, the thing that stands out to me the most is his blocking. This guy he's like watching Hines Ward in a way. Like just kind of breakneck, plays a little more physical than given credit for. And he ran a faster time than people expected. So
gives him a yak guy too that they need in that offense.
100%.
Yeah. Somebody get the ball in his hands, let him go get to work.
I like that. I like
Dortch back, but like it doesn't really I like Dortch as a person. I think he's a fun guy, but like we need somebody like it's gonna be able to be like an Emeka Egbuka. And I feel like Mike Wilson, Marvin, and then Mecca, that would be just the dream scenario. Is that gonna happen? Probably not, but we'll see.
Yeah. Dortch is kind of just the guy to me with it. He's so small too on the field. You get a hand on him, you can pull him right down the ground. It's just with Egbuka, he's the opposite on that end of that scale.
Yeah, 100%.
That's true.
With me, I'll do the three guys as well too. We don't have to elaborate too much on because we talked a lot, which was Tech McMillan and Kenneth Grant, two guys that if they dip to us at that pick, I'm going to be doing handstands. I trust my evaluation on these two guys as much as anybody in this draft, quite frankly. The third guy is another guy that is a guy that I have actually a better higher grade. He's one of only 6 blue chip grades in this draft. So I don't give out blue chip grades. Those are difference makers. Those are all pro potential players. And this is a guy that's getting slept on in a major way and for understandable reasons, but Mykel Williams of Georgia. And he played through injury through all of the year last year. Another baby out there, 21 years old, just getting into it. Played in a Georgia defense. When you're watching defenders on the defensive line of Georgia defense, you've got to not look at production per se. It's a defense with a lot of moving parts, a lot of simulated pressures, a lot of having a role within every play to what you need to do, a lot of times taking up blockers sometimes so that the blitzers can move around you and get home. And so you got to, this is where people, well, the production is not there. And then even on the pro day, he still kind of was fighting through that injury. Guy that might be able to dip and slide to where we can get a blue chip player there at 18, who I think if he had a full healthy year last year would have been a monster, would have been an easy top 10 type of pick. So a guy that I like a lot in this draft. He's actually my second highest graded edge in this draft, even over those other guys.
I like that. Yeah, I think Abuka is just one of those like kind of old reliable. Like I know, I mean, his comparison for me was Robert Woods. I just felt like he was a spitting image of Robert Woods, would fit perfectly in this offense. So I would say him. I would say Jaden Higgins because, you know, I think he's like Mike Evans. It's weird because there are times where you're watching him and you're like, man, I don't think he should be able to separate. And then all of a sudden he's able to separate. And you're like, oh, okay. Like Mike Evans was averaging more separation per route run, according to fantasy sports data, than any receiver in the league last year. And he's getting up there in age. The dude is just an ageless wonder and incredibly consistent. But I think, you know, now the interesting thing, and we talked about the X receiver, Devontae Adams, a big stipulation in coming to LA was he wants Sean McVay to get him open. Like he didn't just come here to be like, yeah, you're the X. Like we're not going to scheme you open. That'll be Puka Nacua. No, he wants to be freed up a little bit more. And so we did see that towards the end of the year, a lot more usage in the slot, although he was never really in motion on any of those touchdowns he scored. But you saw more slot usage for him and giving him an opportunity there. And I thought you saw more, you know, and don't get me wrong, I want him to be utilized as the X2, but I think it's no different than how the Rams have run their offense. They're going to use these guys interchangeably. It's going to be mainly Devontae Adams, but, you know, I think Higgins is somebody that can also be utilized like that. I think he can be an X. I think he can be a big slot. I think he can be a Z receiver. You know, he does a little bit of everything. And I was actually impressed with his blocking ability. Is he the best? No, he's not Emeka Egbuka at blocking, but he is a willing blocker and he's a good one at that. So I like that. And then it's kind of weird because I can't really tell. I see mocks where Jahad Campbell's going in the top 10. I see mocks where, you know, Jalen Walker is going in the top 10. I think Jalen Walker in Chris Shula's defense, if he is there with that pass rush ability, could be absolutely monstrous. The Rams lost Michael Hoyt to the Bills. They ran a lot of the cheetah package last year where the 3 edge defenders on the field at once. I feel like Jalen Walker would fit right in. You know, he could be your off-ball linebacker, but he could also rush the passer and be a problem. And when you have him, you got Landman, like I mentioned earlier, that they signed to be that run guy. And they have Omar Spates who can play every down. I think that could really benefit the Rams. So those are my 3 favorite fits, I think, in the first round. But again, guys, it's all predicated on where Walker really is. I see guys having him all over the board. I mean, is he there at 26? I don't know. Is he there at 20? Maybe you have to trade up. I don't know. I've seen him go 8. I've seen him go 30th. I mean, but then, you know, like I said, it's always him and Campbell or reverse. One guy falls down the board. One guy goes top 12, you know, so I'm not really sure, you know, where he ends up, but I think he'd be a great fit if they got him with what they have on that defense. 2 games, they tied the sack record in the postseason. Can you imagine if they added Jalen Walker to that mix? That'd be scary.
It'd be a He'd be a great addition to that defense. All the blitzes you could run around, because he's already used to running out of Georgia, and he'd fit right in with the stunts and all that around. He'd be scary. And back to that thing we were talking about earlier with you guys, where you pick. I think that's what you are facing, because one of these edges or a couple of these edges is probably going to fall to you, and you only have to love one or two of them. And it's the collection of, you've got Abdul Carter, Mykel Williams, Jalen Walker, James Pierce, and Mike Green. All guys that'll probably go in the first round, but then we don't know where the character concerns are at. You know, about where Jalen goes and how much is that being really weighted by these NFL teams, because they love the talent on Pierce, they love the talent on Michael Green. And Green's a good all-around player, not just a pass rusher. He's a great run defender too, in addition to it. So that's the highly unpredictable part. But I think what is predictable is remove the names, man. I think you do look at having probably one or two of them there sitting there when you guys pick at that spot. And that's why I think it's an interesting exercise of that value you need, where you go, whoa, wow, the talent, the upside on this. But we could really get another receiver. We can get another Kelvin Banks guy to fill in on the line and and there's no easy answers on it.
I think my tiebreaker, just for me, you guys don't have to answer this. If you want to, you can, but my tiebreaker would be, where am I as a team? If I am nowhere near a Super Bowl, I'm going with the guy. If I really can't decide, I'll go with the younger guy, the guy with the higher ceiling, what have you. But if I am closer to winning the Super Bowl, my time frame is now, and if I have these two guys on the board and they're neck and neck grade-wise, I'm going with the guy that can help me win right now. The guy that I'm going to need right now.
Okay, so to your point on that, where's your edge at right now? Give me your edge depth. Just the front four guys you have as your edge.
So right now, the edge is Jared Verse,
right,
Byron Young, Brennan Jackson, Nick Hampton, and Kier Thomas.
There you go. So I mean that right there would, to your point, inform me in the same way. We're a Super Bowl team. We think we're ready to go on that. Yeah, it's great if our top two edge rushers can go this whole season. If Landon can pick up the run defending duties and take that off the back of a couple of these guys to get the snapper. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, sure. But we need more. The Eagles recently, these other teams recently have had the 3 and 4 deep units that they're going off of. Our you're the Seahawks in this division right now. Just look at where we're at edge-wise with it. We have Mafe, Derek Hall, Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu coming back as a 4-stack. Might draft another guy in this draft. You got to have the waves of pass rusher in this day and age. It's not just the top two. So, I mean, that to me would be the overriding. If I'm in the Rams situation, I'm not. But if I was, that's what would draw me to go for that edge pick at that point. Stay dynamic. Make sure that this thing that's been so impactful for us, these edge pressures that we're getting, can maintain and continue. If one of these guys gets injured. That
Uche pickup that the Eagles had made me so angry.
Hey, guys, real quick. I got to get out. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys, man. I'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. Later, man.
Appreciate you, brother. I agree with you on that. It's what somebody was mentioning interesting on them with some of these, and it's only going to infuriate you, unfortunately, but I think it's a good point that people were mentioning, was that now another part of a crappy side to this whole Eagles thing and what they're doing is that they seemingly are being more of an open door for players to come there on those 1-year deals, because they're going to be on primetime games, because they're East Coast and everybody's going to be watching them. Because then if you're trying to be on a prove-it deal to go get a deal after the season, you're on your best display, not to mention playing for a winner. And it's just one more little added benefit that they didn't freaking need, but it does seem like they're getting.
Hey, those void years always come due, my friend. Although
2035 is going to be a bitch for the Eagles, man. I'm telling you.
Did you see the one with Uche? It was
200,000 a year or something like that.
Yeah, like he voided it out 5 years out or whatever, just because he can.
Yeah,
it's like, come on.
Somebody was like put on Twitter, like how he's just styling on people at this point. This guy, he's just having fun.
Hey, so sleeper prospect. I guess you and I will have to name 2 to cover for Mike here.
All right.
This can be any round. This can be for your team. This can be not for your team. Who are your 2 sleeper prospects in this draft that you want to put your name behind?
I will go with the guy we talked about earlier on this with the Jack Besh side, because I think the names you've mentioned around with like Ionamore and Trey Harris and Higgins are all really good receivers and all deserving. I might be a little bit like not as high a guy like Higgins as you are, but I'm not like out on him either. I think he's still going to be a very capable receiver in this league with just at least his floor. But Besh remains the guy for me that when I watched his tape and I turned on and watched how he played the game and went about his business and how he's a good blocker too, in addition to it. And the fact that you're getting to maybe be able to do a little bit of that creative thing you want to do in drafts, which is how can I find value? How can I locate something where somebody's selling low on something and they're not realizing something? How did we get Jackson Smith and Jigba at the 20th overall pick? Well, the guy had his hamstring blow out in the final year of college, only played 2 games, scared off teams, don't have the production we'd like. We get to jump. That's those kind of situations. That's why I mentioned a Tyleik Williams and being so hot to trot. I look for those little market opportunities in this draft. I think Jack Besh absolutely does give you that. And so he's a guy that I've kind of gravitated towards, I guess, as my one sleeper, though that's more kind of third round. Let me think about this real quick. You give me one on yours, and then we'll go back and forth on this as I kind of think through my other one.
I'll give you 2.
Okay.
2 more. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because, I mean, we have plenty of people watching right now. Yeah, I'm going to go with Brashard Smith, former wide receiver turned running back. I think, we now see the model for this, right? Because, you just saw a guy do that for the Giants, whose name is totally escaping me right now. I cannot think of the guy's name right now. The starting running back last year.
Oh my God. I know his name. They just said it. They just said it before I went live. I was listening to something where they were just talking about him too.
I just heard about it. And
I did too. I think I was listening to Eisen or something. I heard his name being mentioned. Tyrone Tracy?
Yeah, Tyrone Tracy. Yeah,
there
that's actually one of the guys I wanted the Rams to get. I think he was in my final mock last year. Brashard Smith, 4.3 speed, evident on tape. Really, really productive receiving back. This is somebody to me where, and again, we were just talking about this. If you don't have a Saquon Barkley, you don't have a Derrick Henry, you need 2 guys. And this is a guy, like if you have more of a finesse running back that doesn't quite have the long speed, and you could just mash people with Brashard Smith, you could put him in the slot. I mean, this is a former receiver. This is the best receiving back in the draft, in my opinion. And it's not remotely close. So this is a guy that can create mismatches, because now if I flex him out wide, or even if I keep him in the backfield, right? I need a linebacker to cover him? No, they need to put a safety on him. They need to put a corner on him. But he's faster than just about everybody on the field. And he can also run a full route tree because he's an actual receiver. So, but then you have the elusiveness, right? You have the ability to make guys miss in space. And I just feel like this guy isn't getting talked about enough. And I remember... It's really funny because he reminds me of a player, and he's not at all like him in a sense, but kind of like his situation. Tariq Cohen coming out of NCA&T. Okay. I kept saying, I have no idea why they're not talking about him. He went in the 3rd round, and I acted shocked. I had him as a late 2nd round grade because I felt like that guy, I don't care that he's 5'5". I'm like, this guy is special with the ball in his hand. His issue is he couldn't stay healthy. He was a good football player. He went in the 3rd round, Brandon. So Brashard Smith, I might not be hearing him, but when Brashard Smith of SMU goes off the board at the top of the 3rd round, don't be surprised, because I really think that's something that could happen. Hell, he could go at the end of the 2nd. I mean, I think he's really good.
I ain't going to be surprised. You want to know why, Jake? Jerry Jones don't let running backs get out of his back door, okay? That's in my backyard. That's Jerry Jones's backyard, okay?
You're calling him a cowboy?
He's already a cowboy. He just don't know it yet. SMU. You know where that's located, Jake? Do you know where geographically? Cowboys don't let cowboys go. That's the way this works. We look after our own out here in Texas.
Oh man, that'd be a shame for him. I would really like him on the Rams because again, I think
I'm joking, but they met with him.
No, I know. I saw the Ravens met with him. I'm like, you got Keaton Mitchell.
Why don't you stay in California with your little beaches and your little surfing? Go grab the UCLA guy. You leave our Texas boys alone.
Hey, he says that, but he spends summers in Oxnard because that's where their training camp is. So
one rule for thee, one rule for me. Okay.
Brashard Smith. What do you think about him, Brandon?
I've not had a chance to watch a lot of him as far as the game tape goes. Obviously, the highlight, I got a chance to check it out. It's kind of the first step, and then if I can get in the tape on him, and there's so many running backs, I do agree that this is one of the best running back classes that we've seen in a long time, and that's kind of saying something because we've had some good ones. But the explosiveness and the stuff that he can do is that Jahmyr Gibbs type of guy. This is a guy that's going to catch a lot of people's imagination, I think, in this draft and them looking for it. And I think that that's a lot of the reason why we were talking about this earlier on a guy like Jada Barron. This then causes these guys, I think, as a kind of cascading effect in future drafts to start to rise up the boards, not to be merely picked where those guys were taken before. And even in Jahmyr Gibbs' case, I mean, hell, the guy went up in the top half of the first round. I think the top 15 picks is where he was eventually selected. So it just shows you how far he jumped up. So I've got to do a deeper dive. I think the things you said is definitely matches to what I saw with him on tape. Another guy in alignment like that I think could be a potential target in the same vein as another, as we bring up sleepers at the running back position, LeQuint Allen, the Syracuse kid, does a lot of that same type of stuff. A lot of that, mixture, like another guy not being talked a lot about, tested really well as well. Another just fast, explosive, can catch the ball like a demon back there. He's a little bit like that in that same way for me. But this running back class, bro, is just loaded to the hilt. I mean, what do you want? You want the power back? You want the James Conner type and Martinez, the kid out of Miami? Do you want just the pure speed? Do you want the explosiveness and speed match it? Like the Judkins type, where it's like just a bowling ball getting downhill and just good luck. I mean, it's every kind of flavor you could want is in this draft of running back.
Yeah, no, it's true. And, I think my next guy, I'm going to stick to the offense here. I'll do one defense. I'm going to go Torrey Horton. I love him out of Colorado State. This is one of those guys that is going to get forgotten about. He's going to fall. He's had some injuries. People have already forgotten about him. Highly, highly, highly productive with, I'm going to be honest with you, not the best quarterback in the world. We'll just say that. I just think this is a guy can win after the catch, which you love. He's a great blocker, route runner, very nuanced football player, great, natural hands receiver. I feel like Torrey Horton's best football is in front of him. I think he is going to develop into a high-end wide receiver 2, and I think he is going to be an absolute steal in this draft. I wouldn't be surprised if it became a lower-end wide receiver 1, but I think he's going to be a high-end wide receiver 2. I think he, in a few ways, he reminds me of a few different players. He's got the willing block as a blocker, a legitimate blocker, not just like, oh yeah, I'll be a blocker. But as far as his blocking, and I know this is kind of lame because he wore the helmet too, kind of reminds me of Michael Gallup when I was at the Senior Bowl. The guy that really cared. I know he's back actually. He came out of retirement, but Michael Gallup's ability to block, really like good technique, framing, all of that. I kind of see that with Horton. He has a more of a slender build, so I think that, in a sense, I think that might scare some people away because everybody wants their big-bodied receiver. And he doesn't quite have that quick get-off that you would like. It's more of a build-up speed, but he can still make guys miss. I don't think he's overly explosive, but I don't think, Xavier Restrepo is overly fast. I think he's going to work in this league because he can get open and he catches everything. Reminds me of Jarvis Landry.
You see, he ran on his pro
day. I had to throw that out there. So,
did you see what Restrepo ran on his pro day?
Yeah, it was like 4.84.
Yeah.
Poor guy. He's got good tape though. He does.
Oh, he's a good receiver. No, he's got skills that go outside of it. It's going to ding him though. There ain't no way about that with that time.
Oh yeah, someone's going to get a good receiver though at a decent price. But I think Horton is also, that guy that's going to fall because of the injury issues. But I mean, everything I've ever heard about this guy, highly coachable. Everybody loves him. Kind of a culture guy. So in a sense, he's probably going to be one of those top 30 visits for a lot of these teams, private visits. I think he'll go probably in the 4th round. I don't think he's going to drop that far. I wouldn't be surprised if he went like at the end of the 3rd, but my guess is early day 3. And I think he's going to be a lot better when he has NFL talent throwing him the football. I'll just say that.
Well, I'm equally very much a guy that's liked him a lot, watched him for past couple of years actually, and track him a bit. I have him currently with a late 3rd round grade posted on him. So I'm kind of right in the territory that you just marked as having him at. So I do like him a lot. Patented move is he's got kind of a hesitation cut back. And as you mentioned, and I think it's right, the speed, the explosiveness is maybe not quite up to snuff for some of the other guys in this draft, but the lateral ability to change direction, This is what's allowed him to be a really good punt returner too as well, which is to me a real signifier of a guy that can give you some stuff with a yak after the catch. And he gives you the traditional elements for the receiver play with being able to catch the ball away from his body, good long arms, good size for the position, even though he's lean, like you said, but good legit 6'2" kind of build on him. I didn't get his arm measurements, but he's going to be able to work on the outside. So I like him a lot as well. You're getting another guy that's, because of his injuries on the prior year, tons of production. I think I had a back-to-back 1,100-yard seasons, 18 total touchdowns over the 2 years where he was playing, and then comes to that other spot. Another fun fact, you'll love this one, 5 of 6 for 150 yards when used as a passer on trick plays in college.
Yes, I actually knew that.
So
you're watching the tape, and he throws the ball, and you're like, well, I don't want to be that guy, but he might be the best guy throwing the football on that team.
Yeah, Mohamed Sanu back there, man. I was like, geez, all right, let's go, buddy. Come on. Really smart too is sitting in zones. If he can, I know you're looking at him for your Rams team potentially, but if he can go to a team with a quarterback that works off script, because he does such a good job of feeling what's around him and then just kind of floats to the right space in the zone and just has always that feel for it. It can work too with being on script, but it's better for the guys that are off script to buy him that extra 2 or 3 seconds to do. He might be best suited to a place like that, but I think he'll work kind of wherever he goes and be at least steady minimum if he can stay healthy. And that's probably a bit of the key with him.
He's like a skinny Tim Patrick.
I like that. Yeah. I'm totally with that. Patrick had, I think, a couple inches on him, so a little bit shorter, but same kind of like, it's long kind of little build to him, but kind of the receiver build. That's what they've got is really, it's like, it's thin, but it's kind of the receiver build of what you'd like. So they can, make those cuts as sharp. That lateral ability also helps him on the route running to be able to get in and out of his breaks really quickly versus those guys that might be a little heavier, not as capable in that way.
Yeah.
Well, my last one, we'll go to the defensive side before we go to your defensive side. My other one was another nose tackle in this draft. Cool to see so many good nose tackles in this draft. Both of our teams need it. There only tends to be about 1 or 2 every draft when they come around. It's a lean position. My guy's Jordan Phillips from Maryland. This kid is another one of those babies, 20 years old, just getting into his grown man strength, gives you all of the elements that you like from the position with the power and the ability to be immobile, and that you put a double team on him and he will just be, you can't move him off of his spot. That's the first thing you want with those nose tackles. I'd love to have you rush the passer. I'd love to be able to do Kenneth Grant stuff where you can loop around off stunts and do all that cool stuff. But I need you first and foremost to be able to take on the double teams and not allow that linebacker to get, clogged up there with one of those climbers down to the second level. And he does that. What's cool with him, in addition to believing that strength's going to come along even more so, and it's overpowering right now, is that he's got this bunny hop move he does from the nose tackle position. So you're loading up for his power, and then this guy just bunny hops over into laterally into the other gap over here, and you're kind of just doing this kind of thing, and then he's up the field and you can't get to him because you're on his shoulder at that point trying to get back and catch up onto him. And you see it on his tape, and he doesn't overdo it, doesn't pull it off. He's setting you up, and then boop, bunny hop comes on in. And a guy that big shouldn't be able to bunny hop like that, like he does. But it's his one little bit. I look at those 2 skills. I go, it's a guy you get probably 3rd round. And I think there's even a little bit of upside with him as a pass rusher, albeit it's going to be more of the bull rush. I'm trying to crumple you like a can kind of thing.
I like that. That sounds like my cup of tea.
He's fun. You guys are in play for him. All these nose tackles my team needs, your team needs it, in my opinion, too, because I think that the Rams are going to have a little bit of an eye here towards not necessarily always having as much of forcing Kobe Turner to be in that. No, I don't, this more than I will, but not, I just would feel like there'd be a pull to maybe not have him as much of the nose tackle position for the same reason I don't want to have as much of Byron Murphy in the nose tackle position. He can do those snaps, but it's like where he's at his best and he's sparkling his brightest is over here.
So I think they want Poona Ford there, but I mean, I could see them adding another guy because they really like Tyler Davis last year from Clemson. I did not like that pick, and he looked really good this year. So I could see them adding one more guy. They like Desjuan Johnson. They let Gallimore go. They have Laryl Murchison, who they brought back. I could see them adding one more guy. I just don't know where, do they just do best player available and grab Darius Alexander? I don't know. You know what I mean? I could see them grabbing a guy late. I could see, it's interesting because I'll say this. I mean, it's an old tale, but I always bring it up. the Rams did not have a need. They had Kendall Langford and Michael Brockers, the defensive tackle, and that did not stop them from drafting Aaron Donald. Sometimes you just pick the best football player that you know is the best football player available. And yeah, but as far as defense is concerned, little bias here, but I got to give him some love because he was playing next to another guy who's probably going to be, well, he's got a great name. Everybody knows him. And he's going to go probably before him. But I think this guy might be a little bit better. Mello Dotson from Kansas. Now, Kobe Bryant is a stud. And he's better in the run game, which I do like way better in the run game than Mello. Mello needs to work on that. But Mello Dotson is more fluid. He's less grabby. He's got great recovery. I think his footwork is absolutely disgusting. Like, it is so good. I think this is somebody who's explosive, can really, if you're looking for a guy that could be kind of a ball hawk, he's had 11 interceptions at KU. You know, he's ended games. I've watched him. So I think this is somebody that, you know, if you have a number one corner, you bring in Mello. He's probably going to go in the 4th or 3rd round. You bring in Mello, he can play off him, and he could be that guy that ends up with crazy numbers like a Antonio Cromartie to Darrelle Revis type of situation where teams just don't want to throw at the other guy. And by virtue, you're constantly getting the ball thrown your way. And even still, I mean, you could be talking about getting the ball thrown your way, you know, on that second progression at the last second. Okay, I'll throw over there because I see him. Oh, I'm not going near him. Now you throw it. Well, Mello Dotson doesn't need to grab you because Kobe is very grabby. And that is my concern because, I mean, I love them both. They both played at my, with my Kansas Jayhawks. But Kobe's very grabby, man. And I've already seen it. If a player gets that kind of, you know, reputation early on, it is really hard to break that. Referees are looking for your number. L'Jarius Sneed averaged a penalty per game right before he ended up getting paid by the Titans. Darion Kendrick had 12 penalties on him, you know, with the Rams the previous year when he was playing. It's just the way it is. You know, you develop this reputation. I am worried about that. Whereas Mello is more comfortable not putting his hands all over the receiver and just using that, you know, that smooth. He's got really loose hips as well. Just a really good athlete. And he's got the recovery speed, you know, to handle it. So I think Mello is being slept on. I think he could be a 2nd round corner. But I think he's being slept on because when you come from a school where there's another guy who's overshadowed you, I think sometimes that happens. And I mean, could this end up being, you know, maybe DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, where they both end up being really freaking good? Yeah. But I think Mello Dotson is where I would put my money between the two. They're both really good, but I think the sleeper here is Mello Dotson.
Oh, I'll find you another comparison. I can look I don't have to look too far. I can just go find another Kobe Bryant. Because in Kobe Bryant at Cincinnati, to your reference on this, was a 2-time All-ACC guy, the Walter Thorpe Award winner. But he went to the 4th round. And why did he go to the 4th round, Jake? Because
there was Sauce Gardner. Ahmad Gardner.
Ahmad Gardner. Yeah, he's Ahmad Gardner. He doesn't get to be called Sauce anymore. But that, to your point, that caused the same situation with the Kobe Bryant for us to be able to land him. And Kobe's been a hell of a player for us. Albeit he's become a safety at this point. I loved Dotson's tape as well. Impressive twitch step, outside corner, strong upside, 3-year starter. 9 of those 11 picks in the last 2 years. So it's Johnny come lately on this. It ain't these. We have compilers in college now. You know, these guys played 10 years in college. Yeah. That's just the way it goes. I think he's got sticky hands and reacts to the throw in the air as well as anybody in this draft, short of Hunter.
I agree with that.
In that way, hyper athletic. I would really love to be able to put him on these new modern defenses where there's a lot of you used to purely with cover 2, you'd have your press cover corners. So you have them both in press and then cover 2 shell on the backside. Now you have the cover 2 shell, but you'll do the off coverage on one side, press to the other. I'd love to have him paired up with a press guy because him and off coverage, I think he's very close to elite with that sort of, you know, I see it, click, close on it, going to go get it where he sees the guy make the cut off of him and off coverage, kind of running zone to the other side. He could be really good in that way, but I've got a 3rd round grade on him. So I could see him as well going as high up into the 2nd round too, being I've got him at that spot, but love him a lot as a player. Really good.
I think I would love the fit across from Ahkello Witherspoon. I can tell you that much. I will say this. His testing numbers didn't wow anybody because he ran like a 4.59. He plays faster than that. You know,
that's why I want him in off coverage though. See, that's why I'm also saying I don't really want to put him up on the press and having him turn and burn at the press. He can do it. And I still think he's twitched up and quick enough to where he can, you know, bam, bam, bam. He does a little bounce, couple moves, and he's up and he's flying. But I'd like him better if I can, and a little bit more of the off coverage place of things. And of course, you've seen this great debate now that's out there with I'm sure this last week with the T-stepping and all that. You know, you've seen this with Deion Sanders and Asante Samuel going back and forth on this.
Oh my God, yes.
It's you need these in this defense. You need both in the defenses now. You're not running these pure anymore where it's like we're all press or we're all kind of off coverage or we're semi press off coverage. It's like, no, you're kind of all over the board on this stuff. So he can work.
No, I agree with that. Any final thoughts before we get into the super chats and end the show?
No, I think I love draft season, man. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. No, this has been fun. You know, I'm bummed Mike had to bounce and we didn't get Jesse or Z-Bot, but I normally don't moderate and whatnot. So this has been cool in a different way. Freddie K. Bassman, thank you for the 5. Please, Christopher Walken, sing Go Rams Go Chuck Berry style.
Okay. Go Rams, go Rams. Yeah. Hey, Louisiana, let me tell you about a little boy. He used to play the guitar, singing a song, ringing a bell. He was good. Go, Rams, go.
I just see first thing is please no. Oh my God. Seahawks fans are like dying inside for that. Appreciate you, Freddie. Last one here, SoCal Ram 88. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, Brandon.
Thank you, man. Good to be back.
Good to have you, man.
Y'all are telling me I'm in Cabo. I'm out there. I'm traveling doing family stuff. I wish I was in Cabo.
Yeah, well, not everyone could go to Bora Bora. So Jesse,
is that where Jesse's at? It's just like he's there every month. Wasn't he there like just a month ago?
He was somewhere. Wasn't he in Cabo?
I feel like he's making the run through. It's quite the life. He's a month away from being like, oh, expat down here and on a beach. He'll be doing it from like, you know, just sipping margaritas every time. Yeah, guys, I just need to change your lifestyle. You know, Miami just got to be Florida got to be a little bit too intense, you know?
Oh, man. As long as he doesn't turn into the meme with the Saratoga water, I'm sure you've seen. Oh, my God. Well, I'm jealous. It's funny because I'm not far away from where they bottle that, obviously. And it's just like everywhere is talking about Saratoga water.
Oh, God. Is that bad, huh?
Yeah, I'm kind of over the internet trends. I want them to go away.
There was that one last week with the guy that suddenly came out of nowhere that was on everybody's deal with the banana peel and the water. Like that, like everybody suddenly had that on their feet. Yeah. Okay, that's the one. Okay, yeah. Like, dude, how did that? That's where he goes, like, did somebody like turn a button on for this guy? You know, what made this come on to everybody's deal at once?
It's amazing the way trends work because, I mean, it's the same thing in the NFL. Someone tries something and then other people are like, you know, that just might work. And then they try it and then they have success. And then, yeah, it's just how it works. Like, I mean, I think some of them are stupid. And you got some dangerous ones. You got the chubby bunny challenge, the cinnamon challenge, the planking, you know, all that. The ice bucket, all of that. And it's just like, I don't know, man. You'll never catch me doing challenges. I can tell you that.
No, me neither. I may stoop to some lows, but I'm not stooping to that low.
Oh, man. Well, I believe that is going to do it. Before we head on out of here, be sure to like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed this, tell us one thing you really enjoyed about this episode in the comments section below. If you are on X or Twitter, whatever you prefer, be sure to come over, check us out on YouTube. Give us a sub if you haven't already. I mean, a subscribe, not an actual like sub. I'm not really hungry right now, but That was terrible.
But
all right, yeah, fair enough. I have been fasting all day, so I think I'll probably make a sub now. But yes, be sure to hit that subscribe button for the NFC West Roundtable. We are coming at you live every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Just today was a little different because Mike had to go catch a Rise Against concert. Be fair, it's pretty fun. That sounds fun. I saw your cat headbanging, so
she's into it, man. She loves music.
Yeah, clearly listening to Rise Against over there. There's something going on. But anyway, we appreciate you guys. Before we head on out of here, again, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And also, shout out to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring today's show. Use promo code RTS to receive a $1,000 bonus credit and a free pick.
Daily fantasy, man. Basketball, baseball, combo it up.
It's true. So for Jake Ellenbogen, he is Brando, a.k.a. Christopher Walken, a.k.a. the only guy I'm going to go to talk about the Seahawks. No, I'm just kidding. There are a lot of great creators in your space, but you do a great job. And thank you, man. And can't wait to be back for next week. So
hell yeah.
We'll see you guys soon.
Go Hawks.